how our bones have changed over time.
My main research interests are in the variation in skeletal morphology in different primates and humans.
Climate refugees of the Puget Sound.
Seeing white pelicans in western Washington is unusual. Seeing 180 white pelicans in western Washington is unheard of.
Learning STEM with Cyberchase.
You watch them engage in this learning, whether it be the makey-makey station or launching a rocket, going to the catapults, using the drones, the virtual reality. Wherever they were, you could just see the excitement and the learning.
Funding for this program is made possible by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, Sue and Edgar Wachenheim III, and contributions to this station.
Being a hunter-gatherer is not as common a profession as it once was. As our lifestyles have become less physically demanding, our bones have changed as well. Producer Dan Balton shows us a lab studying those changes.
About 12,000 years ago, agriculture and animal domestication emerged in Southwest Asia and Mesoamerica. But before that, foraging culture was the only sustainable lifestyle. Hunter-gatherers had a variety of strategies they used to hunt and trap their prey, such as mammoths and bison. Nowadays, to include bison in your diet, you can just head to your favorite burger spot and take a seat. This change in lifestyle over time has also changed the very structure of our bodies, and at Penn State's Center for Quantitative Imaging, those changes are being studied.
My main research interests are in the variation in skeletal morphology in different primates and humans, and the relationship of that variation in bone shape and form to behavior and other aspects of primate and human biology. A lot of what our research is showing is that earlier hunter-gatherers, people who are more active, have much more bone, even at the same body size, so they are probably growing stronger skeletons because of the types of behaviors that they're engaging in. As we moved into more sedentary lifestyles and moving into the present, more recent historical times, we have less bone, and the less bone you have as a young adult predisposes you essentially to potentially getting osteoporosis or having deleterious bone loss when you are older.
Learning more about these changes can lead to a better understanding of causes and solutions for modern-day diseases.
We'll be able to potentially provide a baseline of variation that will allow us to then compare what modern people are doing and potentially come up with some preventative mechanisms for increased activity, better diets, and other intervention-type approaches that would help alleviate some of the stress on the medical system that osteoporosis is posing.
To get a closer look at the bones they study, Tim and Lily use a specially designed micro-CT scanner.
So this is a computed tomography scanning system that allows us to non-destructively image the internal geometry and structure of objects, a variety of types of objects. Primarily, we're interested in both biological questions, things like skull morphology and skeletal morphology in different animals.
In our lab, we're interested in bone morphology and how it changes over time, and as well as between species and different populations of humans specifically. So with the CT scanner, we're able to look not only at the outer morphology, but also on the inside to get a little bit more detailed look at the variation between populations.
So what's the difference between the x-rays this machine produces compared to the x-rays you get at the dentist? Well, it's all about the resolution.
If you go to a hospital or to a doctor's office and get a medical CAT scan, what you're typically doing is seeing internal structure in your body at a certain resolution, approximately 0.5 millimeter or a little bit less. This scanner is capable of going down to sub-millimeter resolutions at the level of about 5 microns all the way up to maybe about 200 or 300 microns.
The research shows how our bones have changed over the course of many centuries, but it also looks at differences between someone like me, a self-proclaimed carnivore, and my friend, the proud vegan.
It's been pretty clear that environmental loading has been a big impact on bone variation, but I'm really interested in seeing if there are other aspects that also influence it, like if there's socio-cultural factors that make people choose to behave differently, and if their diet changes.
Dietary effects on bone are still not completely clear, and so one of the aspects of what we're looking at is that if you have very different diets, what are the effects? we use to say something about lifestyle and activity, and these images allow us to go even deeper so we can see at a much finer scale some of the internal structure of bone that has not been accessible without destroying the bone until very recently.
Vital research indeed. Make no bones about it.
Hundreds of American white pelicans are disappearing from eastern Oregon and reappearing in Washington's Puget Sound. Now, 2 citizen scientists are taking it upon themselves to track these changing flight patterns.
Matt Kirschbaum and Sue Eiler have a summer ritual. Every other week,
we come down and we set up our spotting scope.
We get out our data sheets.
And a hand clicker.
I call it a tallywhacker.
And the citizen scientists count the herons of Padilla Bay.
You're seeing sometimes in the neighborhood of 500-600 birds. It's extraordinarily difficult to count in your mind.
What was your total count on that one?
210.
210? Okay.
This estuary in northwest Washington is home to thousands of birds, including the largest breeding colonies of great blue herons in the Pacific Northwest. Counts like these serve as an annual checkup.
We watch all the species that are here and kind of used to who's who.
So they were some of the first to see the new arrivals.
Matt and I are coming to do our survey. He throws on the brakes. He goes, there they are. And there's 11 pelicans they were like next to here. And it's like seeing aliens arrive. They aren't here.
The American white pelican's range stretches across much of the country, but it doesn't touch western Washington.
It's unprecedented for them to be here. So something really unusual was happening. Of course, we're just, we're having a blast.
Okay, I found the pelicans.
Did you?
They're right by the boat.
Aha.
Really tough, they're low.
Wow, okay.
White pelicans are conspicuous birds with their 9-foot wingspans and long orange bills.
They're just bizarre, in a neat way.
They're different from brown pelicans, a more common summer visitor to coastal Washington. Those are the ones that dive for fish. White pelicans take a team approach to feeding.
Oh, yeah, they're doing the synchronized swimming, the ballet. Yes, they are. Oh, that's cool.
At first, they counted just a handful of pelicans.
Then we had like 30, and then there were 50. Finally it was up to 100.
And then reports started coming from all over the region.
We've got reports that came from Barkley Sound, Canada, one at Lemmy.
From the Olympic Peninsula, across Puget Sound, and north into British Columbia. During the summer, the region's white pelicans normally stick close to a few major breeding areas farther south and east. But with parts of Oregon and California enduring another year of severe drought, some of their best protected breeding grounds have gone dry. Malheur National Wildlife Refuge has reported failed breeding colonies for 2 years. So the pelicans in Puget Sound could be pioneers searching for a suitable site for a new colony. One place they seem fond of is a small lagoon on Whidbey Island.
Well, I counted 135.
135?
And I'm sure
Yeah.
I didn't see all
Well, this is a first for them to be here.
Joe Sheldon has never seen pelicans in almost 20 summers living here.
Seeing white pelicans in western Washington is unusual. Seeing 180 white pelicans in western Washington is unheard of.
Sheldon is a retired professor of ecology. He says the pressures of climate change could be at play.
You might describe these as a climate refugee if indeed Malheur has dried to the point where they can no longer feed and breed there.
Pelican colonies across the country have indeed been shifting north by about 200 miles over the last 50 years. But it's too soon to say if these pelicans are just Puget Sound tourists or new summer residents.
So will they come back? We'll wait and see for next year.
Augmented reality shows users a view of the real world supplemented with sound, video, graphics, or data. Now, the same technology that brings Pokemon Go to life is helping scientists prepare for space exploration. Here to explain is Matthew Clausen, Creative Director in the Operations Lab at NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory. Matthew, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
So first of all, we know that this is the technology that puts Pokemon onto our desks and backyards, but can you really explain what is augmented reality and how does HoloLens work?
With Pokemon, it's using the geographic data from GPS to be able to place a two-dimensional object in space, or at least create the illusion. But with HoloLens, it actually maps the environment in a three-dimensional model so that you can actually place three-dimensional objects onto the space as if they're really there.
So HoloLens looks like those virtual reality goggles that we've seen, right? But it's spewing out a hologram in front of us?
Yeah. So HoloLens, it has it's sort of like a visor that goes around your head. Whereas like with the Oculus or with the Vive, the HoloLens actually has a translucent screen, so you can see through into the world. So if you and I were wearing them at the same time, we can still see each other, but also have conversations about three-dimensional objects. So that's another thing that's actually separates it from the two-dimensional augmented reality, such as Pokemon, where you and I could both be on different sides of a three-dimensional object and have a perception of it being there as if it was actually a real solid volumetric object.
So how is NASA Jet Propulsion Laboratory using HoloLens for Mars exploration and planning?
So for Mars exploration, we've reconstructed the Martian landscape using all of the photogrammetry data, the photographs that the Curiosity rover takes while it's on the surface. And we've combined that with orbital data. We have two different orbiters that are rotating and orbiting around the planet. And we create a mesh that is the best reconstruction that we can create. We put that into a system which allows scientists using the HoloLens to walk around on the surface virtually as if Mars was in their office. You can still see your office, but then you can also see Mars at the same time. And so scientists that would be, say, in France, or scientists here at JPL, they can have a conversation together as if they naturally would, say, if they were walking around in the desert and doing their geology work that they're really used to doing.
And you've found that when scientists are using the HoloLens in order to get a feel for the Mars landscape and kind of measure things, that their spatial accuracy is better?
One of the fortunate things is that here in the Ops Lab, we developed the older tools that the scientists have been using. And the way those work is we usually have sort of an unwrapped panorama of the environment. So if you just imagine being able to sort of turn around, take pictures in 360 degrees, and then unwrap that into one sheet, that's how their standard way of doing things was. And so they're very used to that. And so what we did was we just devised one test where we had them estimate the distance between objects using that tool, and then create a prototype that used a Oculus Rift actually, and had them estimate the distances and angles between objects in the exact same environment. And what we determined was that scientists were two times better at being able to accurately detect distances using the immersive technology, and more than 3 times as good at estimating angles.
And another one of the applications is Project SciTech, where you're helping scientists, astronauts who are already at the International Space Station. Can you explain how that works?
Yeah, so Project Sidekick has basically one goal, which is to help astronauts do their jobs better and to help them to have more information when they need it. When an astronaut is preparing to go to the space station, they spend months and up to years actually learning all of these complex procedures. As you can imagine, it's a ton of work and it's a ton of information to have to hold in one person's head. So we have all of these long documented procedures that are basically text documents. And they go through these books and they read them and they have to kind of remember how to do them. And we thought, what if we could actually just superimpose the three-dimensional model of the procedure on the environment of the space station to enable them to just be able to follow a step-by-step thing as if they could basically have their imagination projected into the real space.
And I can see potential consumer uses for this too. Is there any chance that any of these applications could make it to the consumer market down the line?
So the stuff we're doing, I think, has helped in the design of some aspects of what is going to be coming commercially. JPL doesn't necessarily take our products and push them out to the public, but we like to open up the resources that we've created and the designs that we've made to other partners to help them to create those commercial products. I can you can expect that there will be a number of commercial products that have similar applications that will be coming out.
Really? And one more application with the HoloLens is protospace. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Can you explain how that works?
One of the really important tasks that we do here at JPL is we design spacecraft and rovers specifically. So our focus is on robotic exploration rather than on human exploration. So what that means is that we have a lot of engineers here working to create these very, very complicated pieces of equipment, machinery. And oftentimes you have teams that are in France, you have teams that are in other parts of the country that are designing very specific subsystems that all have to come together in order for the spacecraft to work properly. It's difficult sometimes to imagine how all of that stuff's coming together using traditional AutoCAD or computer automated drafting programs. We can pull the 3D models into the space, and the spacecraft designers can actually walk around, put their arm in between things, and actually just recognize things as simple as, oh, there's not enough space to put a screwdriver in here. And what might seem trivial to a construction worker, for example, where the materials are cheap, not being able to put your hand between something that is actually the combination of very, very expensive pieces of equipment on the scale of millions of dollars can save the taxpayer a lot of money. And so we've been able to put that to use on multiple missions so far, and it's been a huge success.
So it's sounding like this is really, the biggest thing is that it's strengthening the accessibility and the communication. And I've seen you say that this could even down the line make Mars exploration virtually accessible to people all over. What do you envision, and when might we expect that?
The wonderful thing that's happening right now is that these technologies are becoming ubiquitous, or they should be soon. You can go and you can buy your own Google Cardboard right now for fairly cheap. The HoloLens is now available to consumers. The Oculus and the Vive are all available. So it's really just a matter of taking the stuff that we've done and sort of being able to repackage it and give it to the public. And so we're hoping that in the future, as we go and explore other planets, as we do our Europa flyby and Mars 2020 mission, which is another similar to Curiosity that we're going to be sending to Mars in 2020, we're hoping that right there with us, using these same sorts of tools and exploring the surface of Mars together so that everyone can experience it.
Great. Matthew Clausen from NASA's Jet Propulsion Lab, thanks very much for joining us.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.
A middle school in South Florida is putting on a STEM fair. It's based on the PBS math series Cyberchase, and it features everything from computer coding to rockets.
Centennial Middle School in Dade City, Florida is a STEM magnet school. To kick off the new school year, they're holding a Cyberchase STEM fair.
We're trying to get the students to realize that the science, technology, engineering, and math, not only are they going to really be beneficial to them in the long run as far as careers and jobs that haven't even been invented yet that they might be competitive for, but also just to realize that learning and critical thinking, it really can be fun.
Teacher Bobby Starling is in charge of this STEM fair, which goes on all day for these sixth graders. It's comprised of 6 interactive stations.
There's one that is to infinity and beyond, where they are testing to see if the shape and size of fins and nose cones affect the aerodynamics of water rockets that are launched. At another station, they're using some virtual reality with Google Cardboards, and they're exploring underwater reefs, and they're looking for signs of healthy and unhealthy reefs and comparing those. At another station, they're coding a robotic ball called a Sphero, and their Sphero will actually paint for them, so they're making some blacklight paintings. Another one of the stations is catapult launching, so their students are actually building catapults and they're testing to see how angle and force and speed affect the trajectory of the marshmallows. Another one of the stations, they're actually using sumo jumping drones, and that was kind of a math focus there. And then there's a station called the Cyclone Makers, where they're using a 21st century invention kit called Makey Makey, and they're testing circuits and conductivity. So they're creating some different circuits that are musical. They made game controllers out of Play-Doh. They've made gummy worm pianos.
You just have to hold the ground and touch it. And Mackenzie can grab me, and it also completed the circuit so she can play too. It's just one big circuit.
It was really great to actually hear the students just collaborating with each other, and then you could see the critical thinking that was going on in the Makey Makey station there.
This Cyberchase STEM Fair is part of a collaboration with PBS Learning Media, the Cyberchase program, and WEDU.
All of the lessons that we are doing today on STEM Day actually came from PBS Learning Media resources. A lot of those were Cyberchase resources, and so the students actually had some learning before we went out there. We used that learning to kind of focus on our STEM Day so they could then go and test their knowledge and what they had learned and hypothesize and see what happened there. For example, when they did the VR exploration, being able to use those Google Cardboard goggles then and actually go underneath the reef and look for signs and things themselves and interact was something that had them all hooked, and they were really super engaged.
The interactive rocket launch program helps students prepare for launch day.
The interactive from the rocket launch is something that the kids love, because anytime that they are able to engage and interact with things, I think the learning really sticks, and they're remembering which rocket design they picked that went the farthest, and then they're able to apply what they did there digitally to the actual rockets that they launched today.
One of the most popular sessions was at the Cyclone Makers Room.
Daisy from the design squad introduced the students to Makey Makey, the invention kit, and so they really were able to relate to her, and she has fun, and she makes some controllers out of gummy worms to play a Fetch PBS Kids game.
Micah Wilkes is in 6th grade and is enjoying being creative with her Makey Makey kit.
The lesson is about circuits and just making game boards see what's conductive and what's not conductive, or what's an insulator. You can connect circuits and make really cool things like a Makey Makey piano or a Makey Makey game board.
Some students use bananas, Play-Doh, and gummy worms as conductors. Mackenzie Reed joined Micah in creating a game controller using Play-Doh.
The game that we were playing was on a website called Scratch, which you can go on and find all kinds of programs, and what we were doing was the Mario Bros. So the Makey Makey takes what you could do on the computer and makes it bigger controllers, so it's easier to access than having your fingers crammed up on the keyboard.
The lesson is about conductivity and why some materials work better than others to create a circuit.
Water is very conductive, and you can see a lot of them that are up there have a lot of moisture in them. Like gummy bears have a lot of that moisture, and so do the bananas. And the Play-Doh does have, the moisture to keep it malleable.
In the Ready, Set, Launch room, students are learning the science behind an ancient device.
We mixed science with history, so they were able to take a catapult, an ancient tool, and talk about potential energy and the kinetic energy, and the kids loved it. They actually built their own catapult using tongue suppressors, rubber bands, and a bottle cap, and launched marshmallows.
As a history teacher at Centennial Middle, Clay loves combining history and science and watching how the students respond.
They got very competitive. They all wanted to have the longest shot. It started out the first class, shot 15 feet. The final class shot 22.5 feet with a miniature marshmallow. It's amazing.
Principal Rick Saylor explains why they wanted to bring a Cyberchase STEM fair to this new magnet school.
We thought it was a great way to kind of jumpstart the year as a STEM magnet school, to get the kids excited about learning and using some different tools and strategies that they can not only use today, but also carry throughout the rest of the year in their learning as they achieve the normal standards we would teach during a normal school year. Today what I saw was, I always call it when I was a teacher, that light bulb effect. And this just wasn't a light bulb, this was a sun going off in these kids' brains as you watch them engage in this learning, whether it be the Makey Makey station or launching a rocket, going to the catapults, using the drones, the virtual reality. Wherever they were, you could just see the excitement and the learning.
For Bobby Starling, it's all about preparing future scientists and engineers.
The excitement that they have from this day is going to kind of carry them forward and get them really interested in some of those STEM careers. And there's kids that are talking about wanting to be engineers, and there are kids that want to design rockets. And so this kind of gives them a spark or an idea of what maybe they could look for in career-wise to come, and gets them just really excited to move forward.
You can watch full episodes of SciTech Now on demand and on WPSU's YouTube channel. I'm Mike Zeman. Thanks for watching.
Funding for this program is made possible by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, Sue and Edgar Wackenheim III, and contributions to this station.